Imagine this. You're walking down the street and either your neighbor or a random stranger or someone you just don't really know that well comes up to you and says, "You're a disappointment, you're a piece of trash, you're a failure at what you're doing." You'd probably punch them in the face after a little while. But when it comes to the little thoughts inside our head of, "You suck, you're terrible at what you're doing," or "You're a disappointment," like we allow those thoughts to do that to us. We allow those thinking to get in our head and really start to believe what they say. But those thoughts aren't us. So why do we let that happen? That is our negative self-talk. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can finally make that little prick of a self-talk finally shut up for good. When we grow up, as children, we are sponges to everything around us. Everything that happens around us in our environment, everything that we see, everything that we're told, everything that we're taught, in one way or another, is ingrained into our systems. Especially what we were taught by our parents, our siblings, our role models, our teachers. Everything is ingrained into our system, becomes our pre-programming. And sadly, a lot of people experience a lot of negative self-teaching, a lot of negative things taught about themselves, either consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously or whatever. We can be taught things like, "You're not going to be a success when you're an adult. You are only going to be a success if you become an engineer, but you're never going to make it in art," or "You're just a disappointment." That sort of stuff. Those lies that were taught to us become our pre-programming and eventually become our beliefs about ourselves and even the world around us. So how do we stop that? We can stop that. We can stop this negative self-talk by reprogramming those negative things within our head. But how do we end up doing that? How do we reprogram it? Isn't it impossible? Well, no, it's not impossible. It does take a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, maybe a little bit more than we think, but it's actually a lot simpler than you think. It's a lot simpler and a lot easier to reprogram, and I'm going to show you how. How many thoughts a day do you think we have? 100? 1,000? 10,000? We have about 60,000 thoughts per day, and 95% of them are repetitive, and 80% of those repetitive thoughts are negative. But how is that? Imagine the image of an iceberg. A lot of it's underwater, and that's the same thing for our mind. 95% of our thoughts are underwater, are subconscious. They are repetitive, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about the world, and programmed in. So how do we reach that? How do we reach those subconscious thoughts and really reprogram them? We do that through a method of repetition, through affirmations and meditation. But there are a lot of other tools as well that can help with those. But today in this video, we're only going to focus on affirmations and meditation. So first, when you think about an affirmation, you think, oh, it's that weird practice of taking a statement and saying it over and over again. I am a confident person. I am a confident person. I am a confident person until I believe it's true. Well, that's not necessarily how it works. Trying to do it that way is most likely going to end up being a failure. You're going to say it over and over again, most likely not believing it while you say it, and eventually it just becomes a chore to try to say it over and over. So, how exactly do we use affirmations correctly? First, let's get an idea of what exactly is an affirmation. So, using my handy dandy notebook, I wrote down the definition from Webster's Dictionary. Maybe Google. So, The 3 definitions that I found on affirmation was 1, to affirm something. Okay, maybe that's not that helpful. 2, declaring something as true. Okay, now number 3 is very interesting. An assertion that the testimony one gives is true. So, what does that really mean? In my definition, it means that you are assertively saying something that is true. Assertively saying something that is true. Specifically in this case, when it comes to self-development, saying something positive about yourself that is true. Now, how do we do that? How exactly are we able to do that? Well, first, we say a positive statement, an I am statement specifically that is true. You can do very general things, but we can also do something very specific for whatever situation you're in. So, for example, if you're trying to do wealth, I am a person who is responsible with their money. Now, again, there's a little bit more to affirmations than just saying them over and over. But first, we need to understand a little bit more about how the brain actually works. There are 5 levels of brain activity. The 5th one, or the top level, is gamma. That is when you are very highly focused, highly vigilant, the highest level of brain processing that you can do. People don't normally experience this in a normal day-to-day state, so we're not really going to talk about it too much. But there are 4 other states. There is, starting at the highest, beta, then it goes down to alpha, then down to theta, then down to delta. Now, what do I mean when I say a brainwave state, or brain waves, or brain state? Essentially, the brain waves is the frequency of the amount of electrical activity happening within the brain. That also means what state that you are in at the moment. And I'm going to describe specifically what each state means, or what is normally going on in each state. So for example, at the highest level at the highest level at beta, that means that you are in a normal, active, alert, awake state. This is what we normally experience at a normal day-to-day state. Now, whenever you are deeply relaxed or in a light meditation, this is when we are in alpha. Now, when we go deeper, this is the most important state that we're going to talk about now. This is one I want you to remember for the next topic that we're going to talk about later in this video, theta. Theta state is when you're in a light sleep, a deep meditation, or dreaming. This is where we are going to try to achieve, this is the brain state that we are going to try to achieve whenever we actually go to reprogram our thinking. Now, just to mention it, delta brainwaves, delta state, is when you're in a very deep sleep, not dreaming at all. So, going back to the theta, theta is where we are going to try to achieve, and through meditation, and also from right when you wake up and right before you go to bed, the last thing you do and the first thing you do, or when you're in a deep meditative state, this is where we use affirmations, and this is where it is going to have the best results. The deeper we go into these mental states, the closer we get to our subconscious mind. The closer we get to the subconscious mind in these deep mental states, the easier it will be to persuade the subconscious mind and to reteach it and reprogram it. Now, doing an affirmation when you are very relaxed is good. Doing it right after you wake up and right before you go to bed is even better. And doing it during a deep meditation using affirmation meditations is the best results. Now that we have explained affirmations and how to use meditation to be able to make the affirmations have the best results possible, here are some steps that I want you to take to actually get started with this. First step, you'll want to get the affirmations that you want. If you want to find them yourself or you have your own, that's perfect. You can find all sorts of affirmations online. I recommend getting maybe about 5 to 30 but you can have however many you want. If you have one that is one thing that you want, and that's perfect as well. But my range is about 5 to 30, so it's manageable. Then once you have them, we will look at them at least 2 times a day. 3 times a day if you're going to do the meditation as well. So first, when you first wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is you open up your paper or you open up your recording of you reading out loud your affirmations, and you basically read them or listen to them and re-say them. You want to be very deliberate and conscious and try to say them as if this is a true statement about myself. Say that in the morning, right after you wake up, and say it right before you go to bed. That's the first and last thing you do, because then it's in your subconscious mind during the day and at night. And slowly but surely, with repetition, it will be ingrained and become your normal mode. So, do this. Do that before bed, after you wake. Do it until you find that that is your normal mode. You don't have to do that affirmation thing forever, because at some point it eventually becomes a chore. And I would say once it becomes a chore, that means that it has been ingrained in your system enough. Then another thing to boost this is to listen to affirmation meditations. Linked down below in the description, I will have a list of all of the affirmations that I use, and they'd be perfect for general, generic, personal development affirmations. And linked at the end of this video, I will have a video of a guided meditation walking you through a meditation on how to get into a deep meditative state, and it will tell these affirmations so that you are in a deep meditative trance, and these affirmations are said to your subconscious mind so that it helps to get ingrained into your new programming. And I would recommend do this until it becomes a chore and you no longer need it. So yeah, that's essentially the brief understanding of affirmations and how they are a powerful tool if used right, especially when you're focusing on trying to tell your subconscious mind things. Not your conscious one, your subconscious, because that is where a lot of your thoughts come from. That's where a lot of your negative, repetitive thoughts come from. That's basically where all of them come from. So I hope you very much enjoyed, and I really hope that this finds some sort of help for you, and I wish you luck with it, and have fun with your affirmations.